Good morning, dear students. Welcome back to a YouTube class. So, in the previous class, we started to study relating to your printers. We had completed all the classification of the printers. So, we had seen that the printer is used when all we want to take the output in the format of hard copy data. That is, if you want to print the text or the image on your paper or other media like transparencies, that time we use these printers. So how printer works and which technology we are using in the printer, based on that your printer has been classified into different types. The mainly printer has been classified into two, that is the impact printer and non-impact printer. In your impact printer further it is divided into two types, line printer and dot matrix printer, where your non-impact printer is again divided into inkjet printer, laser printer and the thermal printer. Like this the printer has been divided. After the study of printer, next we'll move to the study the another output device that is called as plotter. This plotter is also called as plotter printers. The plotter is also called as plotter printers, or simply you can call it as plotters also. Fine. So we'll study relating to your plotters. The plotter is an also output device that draws shapes on the paper based on the commands from the computer. These plotters are mainly used to draw the shapes on your papers, which we are ordering from your computer system. What diagram, which image you want to draw on the page, that should be first instructed through the computer system, and then the same shape of the same size and the style will be printed on your page. The plotters differs from your printers. The printers are also can be used to print your images as your plotters, but there is a difference that your plotters differs from the printers in that they draw lines using a pen. In your plotters there will be the pen like structures. Using those pens we try to draw the lines. Okay, so as a result they can produce continuous lines, whereas printers can only stimulate lines printing a closely spaced series of dots. So what happens in the printers, the line space is imagined by itself, the lines will not be drawn, and the content will be displayed as a combination of your dots, where in your plotters the entire content is drawn in the format of the lines. Done. So here multicolor plotters are also used. Done. So we can use monochrome print plotters also and multicolor plotters also. So multicolor plotters use different colored pens to draw different colors. When all you want to draw the multicolor diagrams, that time we have to use the multicolor pen, using which the multicolored different drawings will be created. So the plotters are more expensive if you compare with your printers, and mostly these plotters are used for engineering drawings. So the application of your plotters is your engineers. Done. So it is a mandatory when the engineers wants to draw the diagram of any model, that may be a building model, a civil engineer, or an automobile model, a machine model, anything relating to the model if they want to create, those all the models will be drawn through your plotters. That is about your plotters. Remember, if you want to use the multicolor print on your plotter page through, then we have to use multi different colored pens to draw that multicolor diagram. Then so this is how your plotter looks. The machine like your printer is there, but inside we don't use the cartridge for ink, we use rather than the pens of the different colors. Okay, those are the different electromagnetic pens will be there, and which shape and which diagram you want to draw, that will be there on your page. Done. Like this the diagram will goes on printing. Fine. This is about your plotters. The next and the last output device we have is speakers. The next and the last output device we have is speakers. Okay, the speakers are mainly used when all you want the sound signals. When all you want the sound signals, that time we use the speakers. We'll study relating to the speaker features now. The speaker is also an output device where the sound signals from analog or digital are converted into audio frequencies in the speakers and produce that voice as a output data, that is the audio data. So what we do here is the sound signals which are there in your analog or digital format, all will be converted first in the audible frequency. All will be converted in the format of first the audible frequencies, and those will be then displayed or produced as a voice output as a audio data through your speakers. Done? So using the speakers along with speech synthesizer software, the computer can provide the voice output also. So what happens here is, using a speakers, we can use the speech synthesizer software. So what about this speech synthesizer software is, I'll give you an example. In your railway station or in your bus stand, the arrival and the departure of your bus and the train is announced, no? There will be person to handle it. If machine won't work, then manually that person has to speak and announce everything. Okay. Other than that, what we can do is, in the computer we can use one software. In that software, what we have to do is, everything we have to type it, and what you type exactly same will be announced through the speakers by the system. Then we the people need not to be speak it about everything. The content what should be displayed as a voice note, that has to be typed, and the same will be converted into your speech synthesizer software and will be announced, that you can listen and you can go through those the instructions. Then that what we can do it. So this voice output has become very common nowadays in many places, like airlines, as I told you, as the instructions. In the banks, in the huge big branch, there also we can use. Then the automatic telephone enquiry system. This example I can give you is, when you have any doubts or any complaints, you call to your customer care. Okay, then immediately the person will not start speaking to you. They will give you some suggestion, and through that you have to go on selecting the options, what complaint you have, that all things you have to select it, and then lastly it will be connecting to a single person, and then you have to speak with that person. Then that all things we have to do, and these all will be done through your voice output software. Fine. So users can also hear the music and songs using your voice output system. So when all you want to listen to your music, or when all you are playing your movies and all, with the image you can able to listen the sound also. Done. That all things will be done through your voice output. Done. Namely, we have two type of your speakers, that is 2.1 or 5.1, which indicates that the position of the speakers and tracking system. So what is the capacity it is including, and how it is tracking the system and all. Based on that we use this speakers technology. Done. So these are the different models which we have for the speakers. Done. So the latest speakers are the crystal clear audio, where we can also use the Walkman speakers, which is very small in size. Done. And less watts and the decibles we use. Done. So based on where we want to use the speakers, like that the shape and the size will change. So these can be used for your personal computer. In your home, if you're using the computer, for that we can use. And these can be used in multimedia, in the big functional hall and all, there we can use these speakers. Done. So these all are the different output devices we studied. Which all the output devices we had studied? We had studied is your monitor. Then we started to study the printer, the classification of the printers we had studied. Then we had studied is your plotters, and then finally we had studied is speakers. Done. So with your input devices, you also study relating to your output device. You may get the marks for question for 2 marks and 3 marks, or maybe for 1 marks also. Done. So this is all about your output devices. Now we'll start with your memory devices, the last part from your chapter. We'll study the different memory devices. So now we'll start the next point from the second chapter, that is memory devices. So as we had seen the functional units of your computer system, there we have mainly 4 functional units. One is input unit, another one is your output unit, and then comes is your central processing unit, and then we have is your memory unit. So we had studied in detail relating to your input unit, the input devices and all we had studied. Then we had studied in detail relating to your output unit, and then the different output devices we had studied. And we had already studied about your processing unit, that is about your CPU, ALU and CU. Now the last part we have to study in detail relating to is your memory unit. So the devices which are used to store the memory, that devices are called as memory devices. Then these memory devices are also called as the storage part of your computer, because in these devices the data which we want to store for a longer period of time, maybe for permanently or maybe for temporarily, that all content will be stored or saved in these devices. For that reason, these are all called as your memory devices. So what all the features of memory device we have, how the memory is measured in your computer, what all the classification we have about your memory, that is the different types of the memory, that all we'll start studying. Then so first we'll study a general meaning and the features of your memory. So we all know that the memory is an essential component of any digital computer. So what all the content you add into your system or after the processing, all the content is stored somewhere, and that is called as your memory. So as we need this unit everywhere and every time, for that reason this memory will become an essential component of your computer. We call it as digital computer because our computer works on your electricity and everything is in the format of digits here. Everything is in the format of digits. For that reason, memory stays an essential component of your digital computer. It is also called as storing device. It's also called as storing device because all the contents are stored here. For that reason, sometimes this memory unit or memory devices is also called as storing device. It stores your program and the data which is required by the CPU and the results generated after the processing. So the data can be stored in 2 ways. Means the data which you enter through your input devices, that time also the data is stored in your memory unit, and after the processing, once the CPU completes its all the calculation work or the processing work, after that, it will not go immediately to your output devices. It is first come to your memory unit, the content will be stored here, and from your memory unit, the content is passed to your output device. So both the input data and the processing information, everything is stored in your memory. This storage enables us to use the stored data in the future. So what we can do is, as we can save the data in your storage devices or in your memory unit, the content can be used in future when all we want. If you don't have the memory devices, then we are unable to store our data. We are unable to store our data, and in future if you want the same data to be used again one more time, we have to add the same input one more time, again we have to do all the processing and the same output has to be generated again. So many times if you want, then every time you have to go on doing all the works. So better what we can do is, we can store the content into your memory so that in future when all we want to use, that content will be used in the future. Your memory, that is the computer memory, has been mainly divided into 2 types. That is called as primary memory and the secondary memory. Your computer memory has been mainly divided into 2 types. The first one is called as the primary memory and the second one is called as secondary memory. Your primary memory is again divided into 2 types. It is called as RAM and ROM. It is called as RAM and ROM, where your secondary memory is again divided into 3 types, that is hard disk, HDD means hard disk, CD DVDs and your pen drives. Then like this we can have a classification of your computer memory. First is primary memory, next comes is your secondary memory, RAM, ROM, hard disk, CD, DVDs and the pen drives. Done? So we'll study about your computer memory a little more, then we'll see the classification in detail. Done? So the storage capacity of a computer is measured in the format of bytes. What all the content you store into your memory or storage devices, those all will be measured in terms of bytes and bits. It is measured in the format of bits and bytes. Here bit means the binary digit. Bit means the binary digit. Done? Here 1 byte includes 8 individual units of bits. 8 individual units, those are called as bit. Done? So here a 1 bit can be either 0 or 1. A 1 bit can be a 0 or 1. Anything it can be. Then, so just remember the storage measurement is in the format of bits or byte, where 1 byte is equals to 8 bits. 1 byte is equals to 8 bit, where a bit may contain 0 or 1. A bit may contain 0 or 1. So this is the diagram we have, where we can see the different measuring units of memory in the format of byte. Done? So here byte means B symbol. I had classified into 3 columns. The first one is we have is unit, next the symbol which we use, and then equals to in the format of bits and bytes. Fine? So the first one is byte. Here byte means we denoted with B. It is equals to 8 bits. It is equals to 8 bits. The next one comes is kilobyte. It is represented as KB, which is equals to 1024 bytes. 1 KB is equals to 1024 byte. Next comes is megabyte, where it is denoted with MB. 1 MB is equals to 1024 KB, kilobyte. Okay, as 1 byte is equals to 8 bits, 1 KB is equals to 1024 bytes, and similarly 1 megabyte is equals to 1024 KB. Next comes is your gigabyte, where 1 GB is equals to 1024 MB. 1 GB is equals to 1024 MB. Next comes is your terabyte, where 1 TB is equals to 1024 GB. 1 TB is equals to 1024 GB. Next comes petabyte, 1 PB is equals to 1024 terabyte. Next exabyte, 1 EB is equals to 1024 PB, that is petabyte. Next comes zettabyte, 1 ZB is equals to 1024 EB. And then there is exabyte and yottabyte. The lastly comes is yottabyte. 1 YB is equals to 1024 ZB, zettabyte. And after your yottabyte again we'll get like Bronto. 1 Bronto is equals to 1024 yottabyte. And then comes is Geob. 1 Geob byte is equals to 1024 Bronto bytes. Again, 2 more classification are there, Bronto and Geob. Then, so at the start of your syllabus, I had given the start, if you remember. Then, that all the points you remember, you may get these questions for 1 marks, like what is 1 zettabyte equals to? What is 1 petabyte equals to? Like that, you may get a question. You have to be able to write the answers. Fine? Okay. Next, we'll start studying your classification. Your computers are mainly divided into 2 types. There are 2 kinds of your memory we have, the commonly used in computers. Those are the primary memory and the secondary memory. Those are primary memory and secondary memory. Mainly your primary memory, those are RAM and ROM, has been made up of semiconductor memory. Has been made up of semiconductor memories, means semiconductor devices. For that reason, these are also called as semiconductor memory. Next comes is your secondary memory. These are made up of magnetic devices. These are made up of magnetic devices. So this secondary memory are also called as magnetic memory. Then why these are called as semiconductor memory and why these are called as magnetic memory? Because the technology which we use to design those devices are semiconductor and magnetic. For that reason, respectively, those are called as semiconductor memory and the magnetic memory. Next, we'll start studying each type of the memory in detail, one after the other. The first one we have is primary memory. Here, the primary memory is also called as main memory of the computer. Primary memory is also called as main memory of the computer because it is the main memory. What all the calculation or what all the data is needed for your CPU, everything is stored in your primary memory. Then for that reason, this primary memory is called as main memory. Then it stores the program and data which are currently needed by the CPU. The content which is needed to the CPU for the processing and to perform the calculation, that all content, that may be the program or the data, is stored in your primary memory. The size of the main memory is comparatively small than your secondary memory. The size, the capacity, we can say, the capacity of storing the content is less in your main memory if you compare with your secondary memory because of its high cost. I just can tell you is, if you are purchasing a pen drive of 32 GB or 64 GB, hardly you can pay up till 500 rupees or the 1000 rupees. 500 or 1000 rupees. Where if you want to purchase a RAM of 2 GB or 4 GB, you have to pay more than 5000. Up till 5000 you can have it. Done? So just imagine, in only 500 to 1000 we are getting 64 GB pen drive, and for RAM we are paying for only 4 GB up till 5 to 3000. So what the cost is if differ if you compare, that you have to see it. Done? So the memory capacity of main memory is less because it is high cost. The CPU communicates directly only with the main memory. When all the CPU needs any content at the time of processing, then it will search for that data directly in your main memory. It will not go to secondary memory. As the CPU works at very high speed, its matching memory must be very fast. At the time of processing, what all the calculation has to be performed, what all the operation has to be performed, everything will be done with a speed in your CPU. So the memory which you are using to give the input and to store the output with your CPU, that memory should also be having the highest speed. Then, so only primary memory devices can provide the matching speed. Your secondary memory cannot give that matching speed. For that reason, your CPU always communicate directly to your main memory at the time of processing. Done? So your RAM and ROM are used as main memory of the computer. There are two types of your primary memory or two types of your main memory we have. Those are RAM and ROM. The first one is RAM and ROM. Now we'll start studying those RAM and ROM separately, one after the other, in the next class. If you have any doubts of today's class, let me know. I'll clarify all your doubts, and from the next class onwards, we'll start studying the other primary memory types, that is your main memories. Done? Thank you.